Hello and welcome. Happy to see you all here this wonderful, Wednesday evening. I'm currently working on fixing my little Rumble setup because I don't know what I'm doing. But anyway, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful evening. We have a few things that we were wanting to discuss tonight, but I really wanted your input on it. So we'll say hello to everybody in the chat, see how you're all doing, and go from there. Also, while I frantically attempt to fix my Rumble and see if I can make that work.
Also, old school's busted.
Old school is busted?
Yeah, in the chat. I know you're not quite looking at the chat.
Yes, hello. Old school armies. Shall we gossip about her while she's not here? Absolutely. Just understand that whatever you're saying is true. Okay, I think I fixed my Rumble stream, so if you are attempting to tune in over there, then maybe it'll actually work this time, and sorry. Sorry for the delay on that. Yes, okay, cool. So that's that bad boy. We were going to leave you alone now. Okay, back to normal stuff. So, like I said, hello to everybody in the chat. I've got with me, of course, my wonderful painter, Flo.
Hello.
What are you working on here? What is that beautiful thing on the table?
Same thing as last time.
But it's getting some progress. It's getting some progress. One of these days. So there's so the one of the game store owners here in town is thinking, and I'm hoping he does it, he's thinking of having a tournament that requires the use of aircraft in every army, or maybe there's some benefit for it, I don't know. But basically to encourage you to bring aircraft, which is currently really weak in this edition, as I understand it to be. So if everyone kind of has to bring weaker lists, then I think it could be really fun, chaotic experience. And I'm here for it. So here's hoping he ends up doing that. So, you heard me, Luis. Do it. I encourage this. All right. And and then over here to my right, I've got Disembodied Voice. You want to say hello to the chat?
Hello.
Hello, chat. All right. Cool. Well then, let's catch up with things. I know there's not super busy evening. Paul, thank you as always for being my wonderful moderator. I unfortunately almost scared him half to death and injured him yesterday, so sorry again, Paul.
What'd you do to Paul?
So my phone, I don't know what I was doing. Like, we message on Discord all the time. And I guess, I'd come home from work and my phone wasn't locked or something, but it hopped over into Instagram, sent him like a random message, then tried to call him, like totally freaked him out, right? Because it looks like I'm
tried to
hacked.
give him like a video call or something, and then you just got a black screen and
yeah, exactly. Like, I had no idea any of this happened. I'm just like like walking about the house, like, oh, what am I gonna have for dinner? And then I get these messages, are you okay? And I'm like, why wouldn't I be okay? And it's like, oh. Oopsie. So, apologize again. It was just kind of funny. Yes. Sculptor, how good to see you. I appreciate you joining the chat here. Hope you're doing all right. Are you collecting some... Dang, I wish Votan has a flyer soon. Yes.
Yeah, it didn't dawn on me. I guess they just don't, huh?
I guess not. Yeah.
I don't know. Did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have some sort of flyer to go with their van?
I don't remember if they did, actually. I feel like they would have. There were so many toys.
Yeah.
I felt like there was some sort of helicopter-like version or something. I don't know. Anyway. And Thomas Grable, thank you for joining. I'm glad you're excited about the Strange Light Workshop RPG, by the way. I think that's neat. Hello, Mr. Kyle. Appreciate you joining us. Shale, good to see you. Good to see you. Skuldra, Flying Boulder. Yes. The Turtle Blimp. Oh, duh.
The Turtle Blimp?
Yeah, of course. Rock and Stone. Chibi Sorsha, must find. Yes, so isn't that lovely looking? I've got Chibi Sorsha. I've got a Lethal Company character, which I had a great time with Lethal Company early in the year. I never get to play, but it's super fun. And then I've got a alternate Strachan, Iron Hand Strachan there, looking all manly, super buff. Are we buying TMNT? And Naruto? I'm all about TMNT, but I don't know squat about Naruto because anime sucks.
Not even I know about Naruto, really.
Oh my gosh.
That was one that I totally skipped over. DJ did not.
No, he knows about Naruto.
Though I guess he like looked up all the episodes that were canon and skipped all of the filler episodes, which was like at least a third of the show.
Yeah, that was Attack on Titan. My entire experience of Attack on Titan.
Well, I think there's like 3 episodes in the first season that actually had, or no, Attack on Titan, you would just clip the beginning and end of every episode, and then that's all you need.
Yes. And I know poor Paul, he and I do not agree because he really likes it. And, you know, bless his heart. He doesn't always have the best taste. I love you, Paul. But, like, that show was so aggravating to watch because, okay, so you know
Inner
somebody's...
monologue.
Well, you know when someone's telling you a story and you're waiting for them to get to the point, and you know, as YouTube content creators, I feel like I see that a lot, right? Where people are like, "Oh, well, let me tell you why this is good, but first I'm going to explain what is even the definition of good and what is all of these other things," and it feels like filler material. And I just always felt like Attack on Titan was that. So random complaining about Attack on Titan, great aesthetic, man. I just wanted everyone to be done or eaten by the end already. It was a thing. Paul, did I print that Chibi Sorsha? I don't remember. It looks really good. She's beautiful. I don't think that was... I'm not sure that was from you.
It wasn't from us. So.
No, I didn't make it. No, I can't remember. And I'm sorry. But she looked so pretty. I had to put her on the... I will be reminded, I'm sure. JP, the only thing that my figures collection that isn't a real miniature is the Signar Commander bust. Coleman Striker, maybe? So as I don't know much about the enemy other than if it's blue, run it through. That's a good way to go.
It's not quite as poetic as if it's red, it's dead.
Yeah, which was the old World of Warcraft saying. Paul, alternate Strachan, you can see is based on Josh Brolin. It does have a very Josh Brolin square jaw thing going on. Did you see Infinity is getting a show? I did. I got an email about that from one of their marketing folks. So the game Infinity, I think it's a cartoon.
Like an animated show?
Yeah, I believe it was an animation, right?
CG or cell animation?
I did not look that deeply.
Okay.
But either way.
Well, it's the first I'm hearing about it.
It looks really fun. Sculptor,
yeah,
never
go
forget
Corvus Belly.
too. Never forget phase 2. Oh, the trek to Black Rock Mountain.
Phase 2 is terrible.
It was the worst.
We had such a faction imbalance on our server.
Well, I can't play it right now, but yeah, there is a trailer out. IGN has a trailer out. Infinity Paradise Lost. And so it will presumably look pretty badass. It looks oh, no, this is... Oh, it is an animation, but it looks more realistic. It's not cartoony.
Yeah, it's more CG.
Okay, yeah,
It looks nice.
Yeah, I bet that'll be really cool. I personally love Corvus Belli. They're wonderful people. Really wish I could have gotten more into their game, but oh man. Dark days. 9 death BRD runs. At least.
God.
I remember counting them and getting slightly tilted. It's like,
Nobody arrived at any place with a buff.
No.
Ever.
Until someone found like that sort of exploit place you could stand and portal people in.
Like above Black Rock layer?
Was that to get into Black Wing layer?
Black Wing layer, yes.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was like a weird place that you had to do.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay. He painted the Chibi Sorsha, and she does. She looks beautiful. So thank you for that, Thomas. And I apologize for forgetting. I'm going senile in my old age, apparently. She looks so
It's been
good.
hanging out in the studio, and we always see it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's always cool, but yeah.
She deserves spotlight. So Thomas Grable, to be thanked for Chibi Sorsha, if you like her. Well, honestly, you'd like all of Thomas's stuff. Like, he wins awards for it because he's a really good painter. Remember that BWL summon? I do indeed. Blech.
All right, so now we got to find out where you got the Chibi Sorsha from.
Paul's saying audio's popping.
Oh, well, here, let me restart it.
There we go. Even the AQ summon spot was crazy. Yeah, I kind of remember that one. It wasn't as bad by the time we were doing AQ, if I recall.
No, it was one we had to do. We're like up on a sand dune behind some big stone blocks, and we had to like jump down off of the side of it and run in. It was a whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
And then what was it? And then who was it that figured out how to drift on top of the giant mushroom and for Nax?
Oh,
and it's just like you had to get up on a mountain somewhere else and like drift just right to land on it. So we got enough warlocks up there that.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it was right, because if you stood in the middle of it, you were just high enough that nobody could zap you with spells. So you actually were safe up there.
Yeah, there was always like play and counterplay going on between the factions, because all the Horde wanted to do was just purge buffs off. And the Shaman, of course, can do that. Alliance had no option for that.
Priest can do it.
Can they?
Yeah.
Could they in that? Okay.
Yeah,
So
but Horde have priest and Shaman. But the thing with Shaman is they have self-res as well. So you can kill them. And then you just wait till you come by and they can self-res and purge.
Yeah, so they would look
again,
for like the main tank or something to try and purge, just to make your raiding experience miserable.
Well, I think early on before they changed it, you could purge like the Onyxia buff and stuff like that.
Skuldra was a lot more chill than BWL. It was way less Horde. Yeah. AQ questline was wild. AQ was so boring. It was an ugly dungeon. God, I hated that dungeon. Like inside AQ 40, we were like, oh, here's some more like flesh-colored walls.
Just, boy, more and more hours of being in a hole in the ground with bug slime.
I know, like the worst thing. It's just absolutely, I did not miss it. Black Lair was at least
was cooler because they actually had a little bit of that Egyptian style like architecture mixed in with the bugs, and you were underground. You were actually
in 20 AQ 20.
AQ
yeah.
20.
That's true. Everything on that had such hard game mechanics, though, like those things that sucked up your mana and would fill at full health once they filled their mana bar or something like that. I think they drain it from you, or you had to constantly mana drain.
Yeah, the little, what do you call him? Because it's kind of like a centaur, but he has wings as well.
Yeah,
and an Anubis head. This whole thing.
There's a whole thing. I don't miss it, and it's crazy because my little character Newt is so well geared. But by the time we finished Naxxramas runs, I was like, I don't want to see this game again. And it's like,
and you have like the best two-handed mace in the game, and
I have really, really good gear. And it's like, I've even been like, maybe take Newt out of retirement and go pick some herbs or something. And it's like,
well, there's so much grinding.
It's like that meme of the Chihuahua in Vietnam. Like, I don't want to go back. I was like, what a horrible game design, right? To just burn out your players like that.
Well, it's not even the design of the game as much as it was like they're death marching us through the expansions, through the patches. And then they're like, okay, the last patch is out. All right, we're doing the next expansion in like 4 months or something. It was something stupid. And it was like everyone I know, like I'm still missing.
You're missing one piece. I'm missing one.
Yeah, Brianna's
we're all 8 of
missing
9
a piece.
on
like,
our
tons of people are 8 of 9. And it's just like we were there every week.
And they just had to hurry up and release Burning Crusade, right?
Yeah.
That's what they did. Yeah. Because no one can be patient. And so that will be a future topic, by the way, of like the never-ending treadmill of keeping gamers busy and so busy you can't enjoy the game.
Actually, I know for our next one, we were going to talk about fast fashion in Wargaming. So
it's true.
Be on the lookout for that. That'll be week after next, basically. Next live show.
Well, Scoldra says, anyway, I'm going to head out to the gym and back to work after. Crunch deadline for Friday.
Thanks for coming by,
Bye, Scoldra. Enjoy your time at the gym. Gym time is good. I noticed, for any of you who are on Instagram, Dave at Mini Wargaming, who kind of keeps up a sort of a fitness posts, I guess, because Mini Wargaming has, I think they're threads. I don't know anything about social media, apparently. But they're just these messages he'll send about like, hey, go be fit. It's like, I appreciate that, just so you know. I think it's very good for us all to go
Stay
get
active.
some physical activity.
You're saying it's good to go be fit?
Fit. Steve says, bring Newt back. I know. You know what I really love doing too? And that's what we'll both do, right? We go online and we're all like, geared up the ass, right? But we'll walk around and we'll be like, does anyone need a dungeon run? We'll do some Skull of Mons. You need some Stratholme? Sure, let's go.
Well, no, I got, like I said, I have 8 out of 9 on, because I play a Holy Paladin. And so it's like, oh, we're doing Blackrock, upper Blackrock layer, running Ubers. Like, oh no. And it's like, I can solo heal this. Like, seriously.
That was nice.
We only need 1 healer with me.
Paul says, by the way, Miranda, I tweaked the Phasmo difficulty again. The multiplier is now 3.3, and you get about 1,000 XP per game. Yeah, I'm already at like level 35, I think, thanks to you, because there's like 100 levels in Phasmophobia, and at the higher level you get, the more gear you can unlock. Now, Paul, what level are you? Like 90 something, right? Like you're getting close to 100. He has nearly all the gear unlocked. It's crazy. But, yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Old School Armies, hey, I just realized that you did those great Space Hulk battle reports ages ago. I was a big fan of those. Great stuff. I think Flo was in one of them as well.
Yes.
I was tricked by the darker hair. Yes. So Flo, yeah, we played, and did I play Dylan as well?
Yes, you played
okay,
Dylan
Dylan and you, yeah. Now the Space Hulk games were super fun. They took 900 years to record, and like their view count.
The popularity went down really fast.
Yeah, I don't know, and maybe we could look at like better ways of marketing it or something. But the thing is, like, the way 3D printing has come along now, and I keep telling everybody this, like, I'm eventually going to get to this, right? Maybe someday. You can 3D print like the tiles for Space Hulk now, and wouldn't it be so cool to have a game?
Well, we were at Adepticon.
We were at Adepticon there
and saw like the massive, really cool 3D printed,
so beautiful
Space Hulk map that they had with like two stories tall, and like you could run, 8 different teams on it at once.
There's at least 6, and maybe it was 8, but yeah, you ran a team that kind of worked within a segmented piece of the Space Hulk. JP got rockets. 900 years, yeah, no exaggeration. I love my first edition Space Hulk, my favorite GW product ever. Well, I guess we don't have first edition. Ours was the 2014 or 2012. It was one of those.
Yeah, that's whatever that was.
It was when that came out. I really like it. Those models are so pretty. And, when we went over the tiles, we edged all of, because it's cardboard, so we went over all the edges with Sharpie to black it out and, just give it like a little bit of that.
And then hit the corners with a silver Sharpie to add a little bit of metallic. And,
He did all the stuff. I don't know.
Well, we even painted all the little plastic door jambs that the little cardboard doors fit into. So we actually painted them up like metal, and like, it looks pretty good. And then we would set up the whole board on black felt or black velvet.
Velvet, yeah. You had to shoot one direction because velvet has a nap, right? And the nap where the hairs are this way and you shoot this way, it absorbs all the light, and it's just gorgeous.
Completely black.
But if you go around the other side, it's very shiny, so you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
JP got rockets. Anne's of Battle has an STL of non-Space Hulk corridors on their Patreon. It probably takes 900 years to print.
I have no idea. These guys, it was a massive, we should probably post those pictures at some point or something. But it was a massive board.
It's true.
So they spent all year printing it probably.
Check out Carrillo Arts, a super sick painter. Carrero Arts? Okay. Old school. I abandoned my booth for a minute to check out that Hulk game at Adepticon. Nice. Well, wait a minute. Which booth were you at? I don't know. Paul, by the way, is level 95 on Phasmo, and he needs no more gear. Now it's just for yucks.
By the way, I want to take this moment to shout out to the handful of people watching us on Rumble.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you to the Rumble crew. Sorry for the late start. It changed my
We're keeping an eye on your comments.
Yes, I've got disembodied voice here watching it. Okay, so what were we talking about today? So Adam put out a video couple weeks ago now, because we decided we were going to do this a while ago, where he talked about
it was like so last week. So Adam does a video every week,
yes,
and this was the video he did right after our last live show. And so it wasn't this last video he did, it was actually the one before.
The one before it. So that's what we're sticking to. But he was talking about 3 different game mechanics he would like to see go, specifically war game mechanics. And so we kind of made them into these little clips. They're about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, whatever. So I figure we'll play through each of them and kind of discuss the point. And then, of course, because we're highly opinionated people, we have other suggestions that at least I would like to see gone from Wargaming Mechanics. But I definitely want a lot of input from you guys because, well, frankly, I like talking about game design. So, yeah, let's jump in.
By the way, Old School Army said he abandoned his booth for a minute at Adepticon. I wouldn't blame him.
British guy did the battle castings. Oh, yeah, the old like the armor cast looking stuff.
Yeah, like the 90s and armor, like your own version of armor cast.
That's right. You're on the second floor. You sold out of like everything too.
Who is that? That's Old School? Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. Yeah, because we chatted with you for a while, actually.
We did. Well, thanks for joining my stream.
Cool.
Hope to see you at the next one in Wisconsin. It's going to Wisconsin, right? That's where Adepticon was going.
Is it?
Yes.
See, there you go. Weird dice are a turnoff for me as well. Stop jumping ahead, Thomas. Not the hobby tourist one. I've seen the Sig Marxism. Adam doesn't know what he's talking about. Andrew, no. So with this video, like this live stream topic had already been decided before like that video came out, and like there's definitely thoughts on that video, but
that's not what we're doing today.
Yeah, like I kind of wanted to really talk about this, but we can address that stuff too.
Max is on.
So I appreciate you joining. We're talking about mechanics we might like to see go in war games because maybe they're really frustrating. So yeah, let's jump into the first one. Play the clip. Definitely chat and chime in with your thoughts on it. So this is from Adam's video a couple weeks ago on game mechanics he'd like to see go.
All right. So the first thing that I don't enjoy in war games, custom dice. Now, I don't mean like fancy six-siders with like a cool logo printed on the six or whatever, because honestly, I have custom tabletop minions D6s that I'll start selling eventually online, through the website and whatnot. I've been selling them at local conventions and things like that around here for years. So it's not that. Those are fine, if you're into that kind of thing. When I say custom dice, I mean dice with specific symbols designed only for use with a specific game, right? They've got special symbols on there and all that kind of stuff, and they're designed just for this particular game. Think Star Wars Legion, Star Wars Shatterpoint, Marvel Crisis Protocol. Man, like Atomic Mass and Asmodee love that custom dice life, evidently. And, but there's certainly plenty others as well. The excuse that I hear for making custom dice for your war game is that it gives the designer, far more outcomes and resolution possibilities than just using regular like six-sided dice or whatever. This can sort of be true, right? Usually regular dice only give you kind of simple outcomes. You need to roll a 3 up, which is to say 3 or higher, or 4 up, which is 4 or higher, or whatever. But there's a lot that you can do with standard dice as you roll just like a few more of those dice. If you even just throw 2d6, right? The 2d6 gives you this really interesting bell curve in the results that can really sort of expand on the way that the rules can show and utilize randomness. Generally, I believe that companies want to use custom dice for their games because then it's just another thing that you have to buy from them. Say what you will about Games Workshop's overpriced fancy schmancy, D6s. They're not required to play the games. They're just nice to haves, and you can take them or leave them. You can also use white D6s that you pull out of old Yahtzee games that you pick up at the thrift store too, if you want. GW don't care. But try and play like Fallout Wasteland Warfare without their crazy custom like weird D12s. That's a problem.
Did that work? Yes, it did. Haha.
So yes, a proprietary dice is what we always call them.
Right, and as he specified, not the D6s, but specifically like weird images. I think he mentioned the Fallout one. There's like the Coke bottle and stuff. And it's kind of cute for imagery. But I was even talking to Flo earlier before the stream started, because you mentioned that you see it for board games, right?
Yeah, you see it for board games, but at least for board games, you don't have scaling dice. You don't have to go out and buy more dice for things.
Generally, yeah. So weird dice, Weird dice. By the way, yes, she is freehanding the Aquila on there, just so you know. Someone had asked that earlier, and I meant to answer that. Yes, I am fine with proprietary dice being gone, because even though I like Warhammer Underworld, it uses proprietary dice, and it's not, trying to think, because the reason he talks about is to give you those more granular approaches, and so some dice for some factions have like more of the strikes, I think, on them versus blocks or whatever, so the icons are a little different, but I don't see how you couldn't do that with normal D6s.
Well, so some of these clips I kind of edited down a little bit, but he gives an example at one point, which, by the way, we suggest you just go watch his video. If you haven't seen it already, it's a good video. But he brings up Kings of War. Kings of War? Not Wrath of Kings. I get those two confused.
Kings of War is the war game one.
Wrath of one, right?
Well, that's Wrath of Kings.
Okay, Wrath of King, because he showed Wrath of Kings.
That's right.
And they were the cards where you would roll, what is it, a D10 or a D8 on those guys?
D10?
Might have been a D10, but there was like a little chart on the side. And so every dude with his own little card, you could adjust. Like he could have a custom. It's almost like his dice was custom, which was kind of better in a way, because some people would have more crits or fewer crits but more hits, or you know what I mean. But it was the same D10, and you just saw the little chart on the side of the guy's card. And so it's kind of like a custom dice, but better. And so I agree with Adam. I kind of hate proprietary dice.
I feel like it creates actually another barrier to knowing the rules.
Yes.
Because everyone has an idea of what, 1 through 6, you understand that.
Well, it's like suddenly it's yet another thing to stuff in the old short-term memory while you're trying to figure this game out.
Yeah. I agree. Let's see.
Shale LeBlanc calls them funny dice.
Paul, I don't mind the custom dice if the custom dice are D6s, as they're easily substituted if you lose them, like Necromunda dice are D6s, but I don't like custom dice that are D4, D8, etc. Harder to have spares of.
You know, the one exception I would say is for like Blood Bowl, because they're also like scatter dice, like old Warhammer games. And so they just had hits on them and then arrows on other ones. But the die itself was kind of the scatter direction. Like when you would roll it, you'd want to roll it next to the target, because if it didn't hit and it had a scatter, you actually used the arrow printed on the die as whatever direction that was facing. That's where it scattered.
Oh, interesting.
Had a little bit of elegance to it that kind of seemed okay to me, but that was it. Though.
Was that a D6?
Yeah, it was a D6 still.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't played Blood Bowl in a long time. Maybe, but I wonder if the issue too is just being able to get duplicates of dice. If you lose them, having to buy them from a specific company. I do wonder if 3D printing has changed that math a little bit, because you could presumably 3D print.
Do people 3D print dice?
I don't see why you couldn't. You can make your own weighted ones, you know?
Yeah, I think the problem really is finding the right balance for dice if you're printing them.
Yeah, that's true. Because you'd need some weight on there.
It's not my fault if I just happen to 3D print a cavity on one side of my die, of my opaque dice.
That's right. Oh my goodness, Shale. I like my custom dice for Genesis and the Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG system. Well, is it different? I think it's probably different for RPGs. Like, he was talking about wargaming specifically, and I recognize that board games can have different things, and RPGs, you've accepted the multiple different dice for a long time, right? Enough that they sell them as sets, so that's fine. But I mean, would you really want a symbol to be replacing your normal number system on like a D10 or something? I don't know. I feel like it just makes it feel like harder to get into.
I feel like, by the way, an honorary mention to go along with this is weird measuring devices, like proprietary measuring devices as well. Basically, everything in the new Kill Team.
Should I share the rumor I heard about why Kill Team has the symbols instead of numbers?
Yes.
So, and I don't know because I'm not in the know, but what I heard is apparently when Kill Team, the second edition, was being developed, whoever was writing the rule book, because they weren't sure what the distances were going to be for things exactly yet, they just threw some like placeholder symbols in. And then when it went for proofing and everything, people were like, oh, I guess we're just using that now. Never questioned it. And then that's why you have symbols now. And you might not have symbols in the next edition because I think it was an oopsie.
It was just a placeholder.
Which is so believable, isn't it? Like, right? Like that's very likely. Whenever I hear stories like that, I'm like, yeah, that's probably what happened. So anyway, that's the rumor I heard, and now I shared it with you, and you can tell me if you believe it or not. JP Got Rockets, I agree on proprietary dice. That's a non-starter for me. I barely tolerated it for X-Wing, not doing it for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Historical gaming isn't immune from the plague of proprietary dice and the saga rules. Oh, that's unfortunate. I just liked that. Andrew, there's no stupider rule in Kill Team than Kill Team's insistence on using symbols for distances instead of numbers. But if it was a boo-boo and they just doubled down, I think that explains. But yeah, hopefully it does go away, because it did. That put me off whenever I was, because I was enjoying Kill Team, and then when I saw the new edition coming out and I saw those symbols, I was like, nope. Man. Well, it was just like, oh, here's a pointless thing to remember, to literally just have to remember. And like, oh, screw off.
Oh, I remember it was actually justified. I remember when it first came out, they were like, well, that way you can just manufacture one thing, and it just sort of crosses a language barrier. Just everyone can use a shape. I think that was just them kind of covering their butts.
I know, they should be going into politics with that kind of spin. Let's see, I always call them funny days. Barrier is a great way to articulate it. There's a lot of games that have barriers to entry, and it's frustrating because you hear certain game mechanics justified, like pre-measuring, where they say, oh no, this is easier for players. Anyway, here's the 1,001 rules and interactions to remember, as if that's not somehow a barrier. But being able to eyeball a distance is like a cruel and unusual punishment to your player. Just always struck me as like, you are lying to me. I know you're lying to me.
No, it's just more and more memorization seems like the biggest barrier.
Well, and I'm not great at that. Like, I'm okay-ish at memorizing stuff, but I don't want a game that demands all of my time. It's a war game. It already demands, like, all of your time, and making me have to keep up with, like, dumb rule stuff all the time? Oh, God, no. Anyway, this became, like, a weird rant. Sorry. Let's see. Old school. I like fewer dice to get results, but I do like classic D6s, probably why I'm a big fan of the Apocalypse rules. Basic D6s and D12s. I have not... Did we see D12s getting used at the last Apocalypse game, the one happening at Tavern? For Royce's
I wasn't
birthday?
paying any attention to the dice.
There was so many.
I was just checking out. I always just go look at the models.
It was like a 31,000, 32,000. They were trying to get to 40,000.
Including, what was it, a unit, an AdMech unit of literal toasters
Yes.
with legs?
I love it.
It was great.
Yes, that was really cute. I remember that.
So Blood and Plunder has a lot of custom dice, huh?
Oh, really? Like Bone, Blood, Black Pirate ones, and many more. I feel adds to the atmosphere of the game. Well, how many... Okay, so let me ask you this, because I haven't played Blood and Plunder. Don't be mad at me, I know we're friends. But how much time is spent rolling dice versus other decision making? Because I don't know that just the images on the dice are inherently immersive, you know, as opposed to moving your minis around on a ship and taking prisoners or walking a plank or whatever you do. I'm sorry.
So I would make an argument a little bit toward that. I could see it because I feel like, what is it? I feel like Malifaux, because it uses cards instead of dice, but it uses almost like the standard, what do we call it? Like playing cards, like the 52 card deck, right? Mm-hmm. And except for it works because that also is immersive. Because in that world, it just feels like a bunch of saloons and playing poker and doing all that sort of stuff. So you kind of feel like you're doing something you would do in the world.
Yes, I guess if you're doing that. But if you are demonstrating just the ability to shoot something, is that...
I feel like even like with the Pirates of the Caribbean version of like Liar's Dice, it's still just dice.
Yeah.
It's not like special dice.
Well, and I wondered a little bit like I'd brought up something where it's like, I remember, in the Phantom Menace, where like, Qui-Gon Jinn is going to play a game of chance with Watto and he rolls these dice. His are just basically 3 red sides and 3 blue sides. It's just flipping a coin.
Yeah, they're very
but it's like,
basic.
If, Pirates of the Caribbean, I know they had some sort of dice that were carved with something. It's like, I could see if it's something that's like lifted directly from the world, that's in lore. So that even theoretically, if you're just familiar with the movies or whatever, then seeing the dice, you would just understand them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can be okay.
But I feel like you're doing a separate game. Like if you're playing the IKRPG under the old 2d6 system anyway, your combat is still 2d6, but then inside the game you might play liar's dice and have some other cool like type of dice you're playing in that, because that is more of a prop you're using to be in the world, whereas the dice are just being used to represent you doing just theoretically relatable actions, moving around, jumping, fighting, whatever.
And I would say pips on regular like D6 dice are way easier to read than fancy dice.
That's because fancy dice have to get more convoluted. You know what I mean? And so it's not just you're adding up a number or something. Now you're like, oh god, that's the axe handle with the purple dot next to it. What does that mean? There's a number
chart?
Of dots, you can be like, yeah, it's 4 dots. So it's a 4.
And of course, I'm coming at it from playing 40K at this point, previously War Machine, where you have so many other things you're trying to remember. The last thing you want is to remember what the hell this stupid symbol means. So, there's that. Shale says, I hate custom dice for Fantasy Flight.
The L5R RPG, huh?
Oh, the symbols were so abstract that I could not ever remember what they meant.
Yes.
Well, and that comes down to design flaws. Like whoever's doing the design on that, you need memorable images. But I mean, how many options are there that are going to fit on a 1 inch by 1 inch like piece of plastic or smaller? Old school. I did play Napoleonics using in the Grand Manner rules, cavalry, melees, using hundreds of D6.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, this is why I don't play orcs. Oh my gosh. Hundreds? That must be fun. Like, it's fun as a novelty, but is it a whole Igo-Yugo system? Or is it like, does somebody just wait for like an hour and a half while you finish your turn? Like, it seems crazy. JP, the magnet goes under the 1 metal dice arena is necessary, though.
Good to keep in mind.
Good, yes. Veil of Darkness. Proprietary dice, I feel like, are holding back Warcaster, in my opinion. That's right, they do have proprietary.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll see what comes with the new edition, because we know it's kind of on pause until Steamforge gets around to it a bit. Paul, there's no way someone proofread that new Kill Team rulebook. It's full of spelling errors, typos, and some copy-paste duplicate text in places. Also, not at all surprised. Tons of typos in that rulebook. Oh gosh, Sail Power uses bog standard D20s. Okay, and D20s are fairly common. Old school, the original Rogue Trader rulebook is classic for proofreading. There's Lodsa C page XX, where it's just not finished, but that's its charm. I mean, to an extent, but that creates that excuse of like, oh, we'll just go online where we finally updated it as a DLC because we didn't bother to put the right amount of effort in the beginning. Which is a whole separate frustration I have. But anyway, let's keep going. Thomas, I played Legend of the Five Rings RPG since inception, but I haven't played the new edition with the weird dice. Give me D10s. Max asks, any thought on the new GW model of Inquisitor Cotes? I was looking him up. I liked the prior one where the double-headed eagle is on his arm. This one, I guess they're making 2 separate models, and you see the double-headed eagle flying.
So does the eagle do something specifically, or is it almost like a marker, right? Is it an attack, or is it like cherubs in Sister of Battle where you just set him down to represent this turn he's doing something?
Given that all prior iterations have been 1 model on a base, I assume this acts as a marker, unless they changed his rules, which I don't know.
Because he looks cool.
He does look cool, but...
There's something about him having that big eagle on his arm, too.
Well, yeah, like, his old one, he's holding this big warhammer. He's got this, like, sweet stance. He's
I do like that old pose, yeah.
That old pose looks way more powerful. This new one, he's... the hammer's just on the ground.
Looks like a dude.
Yeah, dude with a fur. doing dude things, I guess. It's not bad. I just don't think it has
Whole
the
club looking at her.
I don't know. I feel like I'm just being super negative tonight. But yeah, I don't feel like it has the power of the one where he has the eagle on the arms. I think there's a few versions of him, so I don't want to misspeak and say just the old one, but you know what I mean. What is going on outside?
I know. Bass going.
Let's see. Plunder Den, they're different. Let me see. Are they custom or are they proprietary? They're two different things. That's fair. Old school. This is my annoyance where Apocalypse means both large games of normal 40k and the actual Apocalypse rule set. Very frustrating. Apocalypse means both large games of 40k and the actual Apocalypse rule set. Yeah. Well, I thought they did away with the Apocalypse rule set. I remember we bought the kit for that several years ago in the prior edition. Never even used it. And then with the new edition, I swear it's more like just player-driven rules for those, which I think was the case at Tavern. Let's see, JP Got Rockets. Custom dice aren't incumbent on the functionality of the game. They just look neat. Proprietary dice are a mechanic in themselves as they have an interactivity needed to square results. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would agree
so
with that.
you make that a requirement in order to function within the game. You know, you can feel however you feel about it. I think that objectively it does create another barrier. And, you know, so he brings that up as a frustration or the thing he'd like to see go, because it would be nice if, as a wargamer, you're like, no, I've got D6s and some D10s, like normal dice, and then those translate across any game I want to play instead of, oh, I didn't bring this. I mean, it's horrible, right? You ever show up at the game store and you forgot your dice? Like, oh, so embarrassing. And so, you know, if they're proprietary dice, obviously it's a lot harder to fill. Shale chance cubes in Star Wars are 4 red and 2 blue.
Okay.
There you go.
It's kind of like almost like a D3
Yeah. Basically.
with only 2 possibilities, two losses and 1 win. I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. All right,
But
so now I
to a
gotta go back
Jedi.
and watch it and see what he was trying to do, because he was. What was it? It was like the
red
mother.
is the mother. The blue is the boy.
Is that were those the 2 colors?
I think so.
Okay.
About to say what I was.
I always
trying
thought
to
it was 50-50.
Well, now you learned something.
Now I know.
Now you learned. Proprietary dice design equals struggle, squiggle with dash, and dot, squiggle with slash, etc. Symbols are too similar, which comes down again to design. There's probably some really creative ways you can do it, but it's not obvious. Now, I'm waiting for there to be dice with electronics in them that are going to change the facing of things. Like, I could see that becoming a potential thing.
Just larger dice with LEDs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they like Digimon dice, you know, with a little pixelated something in there.
There you go.
Paul, I heard his eagle will have some rules and will do things. That's why it's on a base of its own. It also means that you can't use the older mini now, or you can, but you miss out on a benefit. Is usually how they design that.
No, you just get another base and you just put like a little pigeon or something on it, you know. Just find some little
like
toy
something from
from another
Marvel
game.
Crisis that just looks like a very normal, just a pigeon that's sitting on a lamppost. Yes. Plunder. Blooded Plunder uses D10s. They are used to resolve many things. That being said, the game also uses cards as well, which I don't mind cards. Many pirates played cards and dice games. The bone dice remind me of Goonies. Ew.
Well, that's a positive.
Yeah, that is pretty positive. One of these days, we'll just have to play a game together. You can show me. No, card mechanics I don't hate in swapping out like interactions in the game.
I far prefer card mechanics to proprietary dice.
Yeah, and would hate both, right? Like, that's too much.
You would hate both?
Having both cards and proprietary dice to keep track of. Which admittedly, and I enjoy Warhammer Underworlds, it has that.
It does have both.
It does have both. Maybe that's why I don't play so often. New Cortez is not as characterful. He's not, like, he's fine.
Well, there
like
you
his
go.
earlier picture, he's so much grouchier looking.
You could just fold one of your little tiny cranes, make like a little 2-headed
like a little
crane
origami crane.
that just you glue on
I could
little
do that.
base.
I could make the teeniest, tiniest little cranes. Maybe I could still do
Make
that.
origami dragons. It's way better. Way better.
So Plunder Dead says the Blood and Plunder is mostly custom dice. Rothian, hello. Mostly an Age of Sigmar thing, but rolling to see who goes every turn is one mechanic that can go. They actually brought that up in the new White Dwarf.
Rolling to see who goes? Mm-hmm. Well, let's play the next video then.
Yes.
That leads us right into the next video in this discussion.
Listen, body voice here keeping me on task. Let's do it.
The next thing that I don't really like to see in Wargames rules, I go, you go activation, which is basically the way that Warhammer 40K does it. If you don't know what it was called, it's called I go, you go. What it means is that when it's your turn, you move your entire army, right? Then you shoot with your entire army. You charge and fight, pretty much with your entire army, who's ever within hand-to-hand combat range and all that kind of stuff. And the only thing that your opponent does during most of your turn is, roll some armor saves and maybe generally a little bit of hand-to-hand combat if they're already engaged with an enemy. Then, once you are finally done, then it's your opponent's turn to play, and then you just sit there. The turns alternate like this, like I go and then you go, hence the name, until the game is over. That's it. And I find it pretty boring. But there are tons of other, and I would say more interesting, activation systems out there for tabletop war games. Even, Legions Imperialis, which is also from Games Workshop, uses a better activation system than most of the rest of their bigger kind of army games. In this game, in Legions, it's alternating activation, but it's phased. So it's the movement phase. I move a unit, you move a unit, I move a unit. We go back and forth like that. And then when it's like shooting, then I shoot with a unit, and then you shoot with a unit, and all that, and then we get to combat. So it's alternating, but it's still this happens in this phase, and this happens in this phase, and that kind of stuff, right? And then there are other games out there that use alternating unit activations where you pick a unit and then you do all of the stuff that they can do, moving, attacking, all the other special actions maybe that they have available to them. And then your opponent does the same with one of their units. But activation can be based off of stats, like in Star Wars X-Wing, or by pulling a die randomly from a bag, like in Bolt Action. There's tons of options. Why does it matter? Well, because the rules are making the story happen in your games as you play them. In Bolt Action, as I mentioned, there's a serious fog of war going on. It's World War II, and there's explosions and smoke in the air, and you don't know what's going to happen next. Hence why you pick a die, either in your color or your opponent's color, randomly out of the bag to see who goes next. In I Go, You Go, it's more of a foregone conclusion. But war doesn't happen in an orderly fashion, Also, I Go, You Go makes it really boring for the person whose turn it isn't. So there's that too.
Okay, I go, you go. Now, admittedly, and I think I saw this mentioned in the chat, that's how I learned how to play war games at all. 40K has always done it. War Machine has always done it. It wasn't until I played Malifaux that I actually had the alternate activation experience. I think that probably was the first place I had that.
So for me, the first one was back in the 90s. Thane had gotten into playing Warzone. And so Warzone was one where your unit, you would activate one unit at a time, and you go back and forth. And the unit had a number of actions they could perform. So you could, if someone had 4 actions, you could move. Mm-hmm. Or you could move, aim, shoot. Or you could just shoot. Or, you know what I mean? You could decide what you're doing with your actions, and then that unit was activated, and that's that. But you'd go back and forth, and I always liked it described as the battle unfolds turn to turn.
Right.
Instead of just this massive back and forth.
And that's a big thing Infinity leans into, although you can also have reactive moves where people are kind of going at the same time a lot.
The big one I didn't like with Infinity was that you could if you had 7 dudes on your side, you had 7 activations, you could just keep activating the same guy. And it's all right, that feels a little gamey for me.
Well, it can definitely get gamey, but I don't know. I get ignorant real fast when it comes to describing Infinity rules. I do remember that. Let's see, Checker Rubog. Force on Force uses everything from D4 to D20 for troop quality. Everything is resolved by an opposed die roll. Oh, just whoever's higher. Interesting. Upon my arm I bear the deadly sparrow. You will meet your fate. I mean, it's a perfectly fine model. I think the older one's more baller. Let's see, robotic dragon. The only things I really dislike are things like formations or detachments in 40k. Starts in 7th, always gives some sort of strong buff to whatever models are in that group of units. Well, the Force Organization chart didn't go away until 10th edition.
Yeah, although that has to do with a little bit further in the discussion.
It does indeed. We'll have to come back to that one, robotic. Although he also dislikes stratagems, always seem to be an unbalanced part of one every army gets. In general, the big negative in 40k is how each generation creeps along, making stats stronger and stronger. There's a more fundamental problem I would suggest on that, which
with
come back around to
statflation. Is that what you might call it?
And not having a strong foundation. JP.
So one of the big things that I would, with the I go, you go, I feel like, I remember when I started playing War Machine, I felt better because you didn't have Lehman Russes. And so you can't just get blown off of your side of the table turn one.
You mean it was still argue? Yeah.
And
theoretically.
And so like with that one, it was more, okay, well, War Machine, you spend your first turn sort of positioning. So the I go, you go didn't feel as bad. Okay. I still don't love it, but it was better than just alpha strikes just all day long, you know?
Well, in War Machine, it was always described as womping, you know?
Yeah.
You build your wombo combo and such. With 40k, it's alpha strike. And those are, of course, the two major scale ones that I remember seeing. Bolt action can scale quite large, but it's quasi-alternating activations. It's where you have a dice representing each unit, and that goes into a bag. And then you have... It does alternate, but technically you kind of could keep going if you're lucky enough. I think that's really cool because it seems a little bit more representative of what you would think anachronistically war to be like.
Yeah, I feel like tournament people, you know, competitive people, like I think they hate that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I like the little bit of randomness of it. You still get all your dice eventually. It's not like anyone's left out on your turn.
Right, and the more your opponent's getting to go ahead of time, you know, you have to weather that, but you know that you are going to get multiple turns theoretically at some point. Or multiple activations. Mr. Kyle, honestly, I only ever play War Machine in war games. I don't mind I go, you go, but I never tried anything else. Well, and that's exactly it. I think the whole I go, you go is just a philosophy of what war games were born from before it got to sort of the massive scale and audience that it has today. Then you get like the alternate activation seems like an evolution from that. But, you know, because it has its roots in the whole I go, you go thing, I think it's really hard to, dislodge old ideas or old games into, from that idea, from I go, you go.
Yeah, the moment I played Warzone, that was just always my favorite way to play.
Yeah.
Is alternating activation. It just made so much sense. And you could have long range units and it was fine because you could only activate one of them. Now it's your opponent gets to activate one. And so it's not just, all right, my whole army just focuses on a handful of things.
And it doesn't matter what game you're playing, I feel like, really. If you're making your opponent wait for long periods of time, they become less invested in the game. They get distracted very easily. And it's boring. It's boring to have to wait 30, 40 minutes to be able to take your turn. Even if you're having to react every so often and be like, okay, so I saved with this throw. It's not engaging enough. You are not immersed in it.
They tend to sort of wander off a little bit, and then you have to go wrangle them to get them to make an armor throw.
Which slows the whole thing down.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Tuckaroo Bob, I go Yugo is okay with me, but I prefer alternating activations. C. Walsh, I think Infinity's ARO system does this best. You're engaged the whole game, whether it's your turn or not.
And that's like tons and tons of Overwatch, and it's very reactive. Yeah.
Yeah, which is again also more representative. However, the question then comes up, is alternating activation better for skirmish level games rather than mass scale warfare?
I mean, I feel like the bolt action guys handle it with pretty massive battles.
Yeah.
I mean, at Valhalla, we have those guys set up the
Amazing
huge
setup.
long table, like several tables
So
long
good. Yeah.
map, and I mean, it's covered, and they seem to handle lots of units, and they don't seem to get bogged down.
It goes okay. I mean, I participated in that campaign, and it moved along interestingly enough. You could be pretty lethal too. Like if you get some lucky dice pulls, you can really take out. Because the goal is you're like, okay, well, I'm going to take out something that hasn't activated yet, because then it can't go. And as soon as it's destroyed, that die gets pulled out of the bag. So you're removing options from the opponent, and that becomes part of the game. So you play it a little different. It does really strongly dictate who you're prioritizing. Andrew, Sigmar's double turn works for two reasons. One, it's mostly close combat, where going first only chooses who fights first. Okay. Two, I Go You Go favors the Alpha Strike, which the double only helps the second player. Yes, because you go second and then you go first, presumably, and so you can respond. Let's see. Paul, I Go You Go is the main thing that puts me off 40k. I've seen how bad people can drag their heels and kill team. 40k would be so much worse against a slow player. It is hard.
Is it pretty bad against slow players, Miranda?
You need a turn clock then that speeds things up. And it's funny because you actually play super different when you have a clock on you, because if you don't have one, you're trying to play a perfect game. And if you do have one, you're like, and you just hope for the best.
Which, to be fair, is more
like warfare.
More like warfare.
No, I used to hate Death Clock in War Machine, but I definitely have kind of come around to understanding it a lot more and respecting it a lot more.
I probably hate Death Clock, where you just automatically lose.
Yeah.
But I do like the clock where you just, all right, you ship it to your opponent now. You didn't get your whole turn, but oh well.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's the way
okay.
40k does it, which is superior to a Death Clock, because that's dumb. It's not like they have, what is it, Suicide Squad, those things implanted in them, make their head explode if they run away.
I think everything in Suicide Squad was dumb.
All
of the things.
One of the dumb things. You have to
remember the bombs in the heads, and one guy's like, I'm making a run for it. And it's like, why would you know about these?
Paul says either they take forever to make decisions, or they have to refer back to their army rules constantly, which, or their app. JP got rockets. I Go You Go favors the most effective Alpha Strike builds, which was a huge problem with anything written by Alessio Cavator. He loved Alpha Striking lists, which is what he wrote his rules in favor of. Oh.
Ooh. What are some examples of factions that he wrote for?
Yeah, what do I need to buy? Plunder Den. The cards in Blood and Plunder are used for activation. One of the best features of the game, because you truly have to be strategic. If you go first, you have less action, and if you go second, you get more. Okay, so they try to make that up. And you see that a lot. So like the Pariah Nexus mission pack, they try to give more favorability to second player with the missions. Or in War Machine, you had different deployment zones. You had like your deployment zone is further back, is smaller if you went first, which it still is. I think they shrank it even more, in fact. So that's how they balance the idea of getting to go first. But something like alternating activations really obviates all of that, I think. Let's see, Thomas, Company of Iron had alternating activations, but it was skirmish, yeah. It did. I thought Company of Iron was a charming little game.
I felt like it had a lot of potential. We even did a Christmas special battle report with it. But I feel like the army building should have been modified a little bit or something. Instead of having to take a whole unit of stuff, it's like
it's too hard to kill things.
Well, and everything had tough.
Everything had tough, and then the bleed. What was it? A bleed mechanic or something? It was just really hard to finish the game. Like it felt like it would drag on.
Yeah.
Andrew says, "Oh hey, did y'all see the Monty Python Magic the Gathering crossover?" What? Nope.
No. I don't mess with magic.
I remember way back, I think back in the 90s again, so when I used to work at Wargames West, there was a Monty Python CCG that they'd put out. That was a
Can
long
you
time
still
ago.
find a holy hand grenade?
Obviously. You'll never make anything of that without a holy hand grenade.
Of Antioch or something?
Yeah. Holy hand grenade of Antioch.
So no, we haven't. I'm gonna just throw that in a Google search so that I can remember after the stream to be like, oh, well, how about that? Oh no. Okay. Anyway, back to the subject. Yes. We're staying on topic around here. JP, let's see. I've used cards to randomize multiplayer games. We do it in Tech Commander as well. Nice. Let's see. If you're at Gen Con, you should play Tech Commander with us. Oh, we will not be at Gen Con. And I don't know if we'll be at Adepticon yet, because, man, traveling's expensive.
Yeah. Well, gosh, just earlier this year, we did lots of traveling and literally got sick every time we got back.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest. I've never had that in my life.
I got super sick in April and sad about it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's even a picture of you on the what is it?
I just share my sadness with the internet.
You hooked up to an IV.
Yeah, it's just antibiotics. It's fine. Cool. We'll be at Gen Con as well. Someone was dressing you guys down about the convention attendance, and if I recall correctly, Mike set them up pretty straight about the logistics of it. Was that because were you off in the historical segment? I don't remember. People ended up being pretty fine with how the booths and the gaming was all laid out at Adepticon, but it's also nice that they're going to be in a much bigger venue now.
It'll be interesting to see.
Using the clock and War Machine is great, yeah. Chronic Toast, hey, Ruby, we're just bragging about your amazing bolt action campaign, you and your boys. Built-in game clocks are nice too. In bolt action, you can put fate dice in the bag, and when all of them get pulled, round ends, regardless of how many other order die remain. Prioritize WoW. Oh, interesting. I've not dealt with that mechanic yet. Old school. Gotta run. I'm supposed to be designing the next battle casings model. Great to hang out. Take care, man. Thanks for popping in. Shale, I strongly prefer battle tax initiative system. The player with more units on the board has to move more units at the end of the count, but it is unit activation with move/shooting phase.
Okay. It's like another mechanic to try to smooth out the huge chunkiness of activation. Because I know even with alternating activation, there's people who will choose armies where they just have far more units than you do. And so you go back and forth. And at the end, they get to go, then go, then go, then go. Then it's the next round.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different mechanics people will do to try to kind of solve that, I guess.
Interesting. Well, yeah, but again, like how many band-aids do you put on to smooth that out when if you did alternating activation, it kind of would smooth it out automatically. But that is an interesting ploy or an interesting way of going. JP Got Rockets asks, hey, Disembodied Voice, you mentioned Thane. Is that the same Thane of Thane's Games who wrote a
kick-ass pod racer game? Yeah, Thane Morgan. He's actually he's a friend of ours.
He wrote Armies of Arcana.
Yeah, and I mean, I've known him since, again, the 90s when I used to live here. But then when we came back 10 years ago, we hung out and played games with him and stuff like that. It's definitely the same thing.
I haven't seen him in a minute, but yeah, that is the same. Chronic Toes, thanks for the kind words. I joined late. Just got done with a 12-hour day. Whew. I feel ya. Bolt Action version 3 rules are coming out soon. Exciting times to see what mechanics are changed. I know. I'm in the Facebook group for it, and there's lots of opinions bandying about, lots of speculation too. My goodness. Hey, Robert. Thanks for joining us. How you doing, man? Robert is a big Star Trek fan, and I've been watching Star Trek lately. It's been fun. Andrew, forgot to mention, Sigmar's Who Goes First mechanic comes down to how you build your list. Oh.
That's kind of interesting.
Interesting indeed.
Your list building is actually builds in a certain amount of I don't know, tactical advantage in turning. That's an interesting thing to look into. Yeah.
I mean, so you see that quasi modified or mitigated, I guess, the Alpha Strike concern with list building requirements. List building also goes into how you're going to play mission cards in the case of 40K with mission decks. Because there's some ways you could build your army that would benefit more from cards in there. Robert, yes, Battletech tries to keep the amount of units to move per side to keep it as even as possible. Fair enough. Shall we jump into the third thing?
Yes, the third and final clip.
Third and final clip. What do we got here, Adam? What are you telling us?
And the last rules mechanic that I could do without, bad list customization. The worst offender amongst the games that I know is the 2021 version of Kill Team. I loved Kill Team 2018 because you could like really build the type of list that you wanted to for your force. Now, sure, you couldn't use like every model available in a faction from Warhammer 40K, right? Like you couldn't be like, I'm going to put in a Land Raider. But you could use a lot of the foot troops, especially when they released the Elites add-on kind of later on, like 2019, I think. Then along came the new version of Kill Team in 2021, and then your force could only field between 1 and 2 types of units, and only certain numbers. In most games, you're given a bunch of different types of units to choose from, and then, those units, or maybe models, if it's a skirmish game instead of an army game, they all have a certain like value, or they have points or something like that, and then you have a fixed number of points to spend on your force. And then you just do the math. Sometimes there are like other requirements for the force as well, besides just the maximum amount of points. Maybe you have to include a leader character, or maybe you can only field a certain number of a specific unit so you don't spam too many of them, or whatever. But you as the player have a certain amount of agency over your own force, and that's important to making them feel like your own force. In the new version of Kill Team 2021, if you use the compendium specifically, then you can usually only take like 2 fire teams, and that means only 2 different types of units. Now, it could be 2 of the same unit, which would be even kind of worse, or you can use 2 different types of units. That's mainly the long and short of it, pretty much. You might get to tweak some weapon choices on the units, but not too much, I don't think. My old favorite Necron Kill Team was a combination of Immortals, Warriors, a single Death Mark, and then some flayed ones that I had made myself because the new ones weren't out yet. There's like no way to make that list, in the new version of Kill Team.
Mike's on?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, yeah, there we go. Hello. Yes, so rigid list building structures. And as Paul had mentioned, he commented on that video that he had about 8 different kill teams, and in the new edition, only 1 remained valid. So, and that list was 10 Gene Stealers, which is absurd. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds horrific.
Yeah. So.
I mean, just to play against, that sounds horrific. I bet they move fast as hell.
Oh, I know, right? Here's the devil's advocate to that, because I know that Kill Team. No, I'm wrong. Kill Team is just totally wildly different. I think of Combat Patrol.
Yeah.
Combat Patrol is a set list which is specifically designed for new players so that you're like, I don't have to worry about the list building. This is out of the box. I assemble it and then I play with the thing and I assume it's at least decent synergy to itself or something. Whereas Kill Team, yeah, you are customizing all of those models and you buy the different Kill Team boxes. I don't know, it just seems more disappointing. Like, and on top of learning like all the goofy extra rules.
Well, it seems almost like, and I don't know, it seems like they're wanting to kind of create a bunch of just sort of packaged products that you just buy. Mm-hmm. But I remember Kill Team originally, it really was about just, I mean, it's skirmish, so you're like, ooh, what in my army could I build a little list out of? Like, this is kind of neat. And it was just something that was almost a novelty that you could do.
Yeah.
It was a fun game, whereas I almost feel like Necromunda is more, would be more like you have your gang and it just comes in a box and that's the package thing, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like something like Kill Team, it's like, yeah, I already have like 200 little dudes, like let me build an army out of them.
Yeah, it should just be something you can cobble together. But I mean, as Chronic Toast mentions, it smacks of buy new products versus gameplay first. I get both perspectives, but if it's rough when things seem to change from one edition to another. And I mean, it's not hard. It's not a far reach to think, oh, are they just designing this so you have to buy new stuff? Even when I was collecting all of the Warhammer Underworlds models and the Warcry stuff came out, I was like, oh, do any of my models cross over to trying Warcry? Because I didn't want to have to buy new models. Like, one of them did. Like, very few. You, no matter what, had to buy more stuff. And I was like, oh, I see what you're doing.
That was going to be my strategy, because I kept getting the Stormcast Eternals for Underworlds.
Warhammer Underworlds, yes.
Yes, not
Undercity.
But I was like, all right, eventually I'm just going to have probably a crappy army, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll just have an army and that'll be fine.
Yes.
And then I swear to God, with this new model purge that they just went through, I bet they dumped most of those. I bet those are ones that probably didn't survive. I don't know.
Maybe they can be reforged into something else.
You just take a little Sharpie and write a new name in front of them and say it's that unit now.
Just the sad version. The Ruination Chambers, just emo Stormcast. Ugh. Anyway.
You can tell Miranda didn't love the idea of the Ruination Chambers.
I don't. I mean, if you think about, just from a lore perspective, it's like, oh, Sigmar made these. He's a god. Anyway, he doesn't know how to fix a soul or, like, help restore it. And these guys who've been reforged in this flaw that keeps, degenerating them over time, we're not going to not make them fight or retire or anything. It's just, everything about it just reeks of bad writing. But anyway, I have opinions. Robert, how are teams built in Dust? Gosh, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
You did. There was an app for it, I remember, and then there were cards associated with the models. I think you just built on points. There were leader characters, because the stuff that was sent to me was like a full force. I didn't really have to do much to assemble it, but I think there may have been a core. Gosh, that's a good question. It's been a long enough time now. I don't know. Let's see. The start of Tommy's Roman-themed Space Marines. Repurposed Stormcast.
There you go.
I love it.
All you gotta do is just clip off the old shoulder pads and just put Space Marine shoulder pads on them. Everything else works fine.
Everything's the same. Andrew says, so that's the other half of Sigmar's list construction. You go first with the fewest drops, which are combo of leader plus certain units. They chose some lore bad combos of units. Lore bad combos? Okay. Interesting. So is all of that, as far as you know, also being incorporated into 4th edition, or is a lot of that stuff being addressed where you maybe don't have such lore bad combos? I don't know. Engineer Jeff, oh my goodness, it's been a minute since I've seen you. Thanks for joining. I hope you're doing well. I always wanted to use my Catachans to make a kill team and name them after characters from movies like Predator, Full Metal Jacket, and Platoon.
You already did that.
I did that.
In fact, you have a female Catachan
named Vasquez.
Yeah, but she has adios written on the side of a grenade launcher.
I was able to, was it a micron pen or something?
No, that I actually had to paint
just
on because it was white.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so she wrote adios.
But yeah, you have, what is it, Phoenix?
Simon Phoenix.
Simon Phoenix is one.
Demolition Man, which is a prophetic movie, if you haven't seen it.
Well, he has a flamethrower, right? And like orange pants. And
He's a very loud character. He's so great. Oh my gosh. I love all my last action heroes. Dusk Warfare was point space, similar to 5th edition 40k. Okay, so Chronic Toast knows what's up. Yes. Brian, they did that to Stormcast because folks didn't like squeaky clean good guys and had to grim dark them up.
Well, don't they have all the other factions
I know, you
for
have
that?
Literally every other faction.
It's like I actually did want like an army full of paladins that I could play. Like I actually kind of like that.
It's like, no, everything has to be so dark and tragic. It's like, oh, well, okay. Tell me your worldview without telling me your worldview.
Right.
Okay. It's just not very interesting anymore. I mean, it's not like they're making the Skaven any nicer, cleaner. And I guess there's a bit of a talk around like Slaanesh getting cleaned up, tidied up to an extent, and by that I mean ignored. To it, well, not in Age of Sigmar, I guess as much. But.
Yeah, I don't know. If they wanted me to respect them, they'd have just doubled down on Slaanesh. I'm like, oh yeah, you don't like it? Well, now you're really not going to like it.
But think of the
These
children.
are the new models.
Yeah. Jeff, I have an animal mother carrying a las cannon. Yes.
That's great.
Yes. I like the good versions of Stormcast. My goodness, how unprofessional. Brian says, I like the good versions of the Stormcast myself. I agree too. Now, I was poking around on Reddit because I'm doing this review for White Dwarf, and is there like a sacrosanct chamber? My understanding is there's something like that believe that the reforged Stormcast can be healed, like their souls can be healed, because I guess the idea is that they lose their humanity, so they're not crazy because, we can't go Canadian health caring them if they have no ability to consent, but, they're emotionally, like, all gone. Sorry. I really don't like that lore. But, so
it's like the idea in that story, it's like, can they recover?
Yeah, and I would think there should be a way forward for that to happen, for some kind of healing to happen, but no. So anyway, is Flo going to add any nose art to the Vulture gunship?
Not unless Miranda wants it.
Could we get a bomber girl on there?
I know. I considered it.
I don't want to.
Well, there's not really a place on the nose.
Well, it would be on like the side, right? You got this big old panel. Look at those cute cheeks it has. Such a Vulture gunship.
Cute cheeks on the screen.
Well, that's how you describe your minis. Let's see, Rothian. I have never been a fan of anything grimdark in terms of setting or lore. So to me, GW trying to make themselves a grimdark company by making all of their games like that just gets tacky to me. Well, it just becomes very samey, right? I mean, part of how you delineate or even recognize how dark something is by being able to contrast it to maybe something good. And if you don't do that, anything. Now it's not dark relative to anything else. It's just all kind of bland tragedy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I understand a lot of grimdark stuff, but I don't know that you make the factions different.
Indeed. Yes. That said, I still very much love the Age of Sigmar as a fantasy setting. Okay. I mean, I've learned a lot about it because I've been reading all the White Dwarfs, and like that has been my only way of learning about the different realms, how the Skaven have come, like what the different realms kind of represent as far as bastions of magical concentration, like types of magic.
Turns out that Age of Sigmar are a bunch of flat earthers.
They're all on Discord. It's like Terry Pratchett, eat your heart out, right? Let's see. As Richmond said in the IT crowd, an ill wind is blowing. Longbow. I have the old Liber Chaotica from 2003, and let's just say the Slaanesh section was a little rough, to say the least. Oh my.
Double down. That's what I say.
Just go all in.
Oh, I mean, you want to be grimdark, but oh no,
you want to be grimdark, but like kid friendly. It's very much
grimdark kid friendly. Like, let me explain that to me.
It's when you can't choose your audience.
How do you have Korn and Nurgle, and be like, this is kid friendly? It's like it's no more kid friendly than.
Well, I mean, maybe 80s kid friendly. they were different.
Say like nowadays, yeah, no.
But then to be fair, like Slaanesh is also 80s kid friendly because 80s kids were made out of tougher stuff.
They definitely were exposed to a lot. Chickarooba. Hi, Brian. Goth to boss. I love No Fielding so much.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Robert asks, do you still play Malifaux? I don't.
I haven't played in a while. I did buy the stuff to play 3rd edition, but
Well, you and DJ both have bought crews, right?
Yes, yeah, his crew is more put together than mine at this point.
Which one did he have? He had the Jack the Ripper like one or something.
No,
What was it?
I have the Mad Hatter one.
Mad Hatter.
I'm the one who plays Buzzards. He got it's the new faction, the Explorers Guild.
Oh yeah, I don't know
Oh.
anything about
Playing-
that one.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with them. It was the Shadow guys. I can't remember his name right now.
Because I always like the Gremlins. Those guys are pretty cool. And then I always, what is it? The Victorias.
Yeah, they
I
were from the
played at
guild,
one point,
weren't they?
and then the Frycorps. Like I played those guys too. That was years ago.
DJ's gotten more
Oh, well,
into
Neverborn.
some of the guild stuff also. And like we get the stuff for it, but it's just the two of us and we never play together. So
I know the feeling. Yeah, it's one of those like maybe someday I'll get to play, but my schedule has gotten just bizarre to fit. It's difficult to fit stuff in. So no, unfortunately, I don't still play Malifaux. Chronic Toast says AOS isn't full grimdark until everything is John Blanche totally in my mind. Yeah, I'm so tired of grimdark. Give me a funny, cool look like the Trollbloods. Well, that was really one of the beautiful things about like the world of War Machine. You had, dark twisted things like Crix.
Until recent lore. But earlier lore. What is it? What was the year we're playing in right now?
605 AR?
607, I think is what we're in.
I didn't think it was that far, but maybe.
No, but like around that era of the writing in it.
It was when Lael got invaded. It was relatively newly invaded by Khador, and Sigmar was gearing up to go to war, and the Sully's Civil War had happened, or was happening. So yeah, I mean, it's war-torn, but at the same time, Sigmar isn't all evil, despite plenty of players being like, oh, they're like,
They're mean to the Trollkins.
They're mean to the Trollbloods or
like,
whatever.
whatever.
Khador got like less shit somehow. It's like they literally are an expansion. It's like national, whatever. Anyway, that said, like there was a lot of color to the world. You had gray characters, but you had uniquely good characters. Like Stryker was a good person. Morally ambiguous characters, like the old witch who just sort of meant her own means, but it wasn't just like
She was
mean.
like a force of nature more than anything, right? So you're like, how are you moral or immoral? Is that even possible with you?
And as much as my goodness, names falling out of my head, Fiora being very different from Krios, as far as like where their moral compass was. You just had way more interesting stuff in that regard. Whereas when you read White Dwarf, every single article is somebody who's corrupt, part of some sort of major powerful structure, immediately corrupt. Everyone in it is just a pawn, and the people who are actually powerful in it are all pulling some, two-faced stuff. And it's like, ChatGPT, please give me something else to read.
Yeah. No, it's all just this kind of awful Marxist power struggle. And it's like, really not one person's altruistic ever, huh? Just never has ever happened.
And War Machine actually did have that. Like there was really cool lore in there.
Well, they had people of all personalities, turns out. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of different types of people.
And it made the stakes feel higher.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, you didn't want kingdoms to fall. You didn't want like a city to get razed. You didn't want, you know what I mean? Or you did want, certain heroes to go and do a thing, but it actually had stakes instead of just, I don't know. In the grimdark stories, you're like, I don't know, it's all going to burn and go to hell, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, just how do we get there this time? Oh, it's this way. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Chronic Toast says, grimdark kid-friendly equals, I'm 90s Batman. Okay, 90s Batman was really good.
It was.
Right. Well, there you go. The grimdark kid friendly. What was it? The second Batman 2. The
Batman Beyond.
That's a cartoon, isn't it?
Oh, we are talking about the. Are you talking about?
I guess it technically is 80s Batman, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's
like the Tim Burton Batman. That's what I was thinking. Because the second one with the Penguin and Catwoman and stuff like that.
Forever.
It's kind of grimdark. Oh, those cities are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really strong.
They were very dark.
Andrew Fairbanks, U.S. Violence is cool. S3X.
Sex.
Oh, right, bad. Europeans. Sex is cool. Showing a gun is too violent. Yeah, I mean, everyone's got their line. At least with violence, you can be like, okay, looks cool, but it's always actually a bad thing to do.
Well, yeah, like I guess the moral
explanation of it is easier to define.
Well, it's easier to define when talking to a kid.
There you go.
Whereas when you look at something like, sex or something with a kid, you're like,
oh, Batman Returns. Thank you, Paul.
You're like,
Batman Forever was.
So it's bad, don't do it. But when you're older, it's great, it's fine. And kids are like, what? Whereas violence, you're like, yeah, violence is always bad. Just don't do that to people.
Right.
And then it's just very clear, whereas kids, it gets that gray area where as a kid, they don't understand gray areas. So you're like, just we'll deal with this when you're older and have a little more frontal cortex development.
Yeah, maybe so, right? A little smarter. Ruffian, 80s kid and chaos gave me this thought about Nurgle as a garbage pail kid, and now it won't get out of my head.
Yes.
Horrible. Oh, my brother had some of those.
Oh, garbage pail kids are crazy. I remember how popular they were. Like everyone wanted to have them.
Don't get it.
They made a movie, right?
Yeah, I do.
There is. All right. So for anyone who's, of course, everyone's interested in this, go on. I think YouTube has a cut of the Garbage Pail Kids where they just completely remove the Garbage Pail Kids from it.
Oh,
and it's just the story left over about the girl who's trying to be a fashion designer, and she's like picking on this poor kid, this little boy who has a crush on her, but she's just using him. And it's just like this weird story once you pull the Garbage Pail Kids out. And then you also realize that you didn't actually need the Garbage Pail Kids in that story at all.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Do they do that with Indiana Jones and the
like the
of
ending,
the Covenant, where his interaction meant nothing?
It kind of meant something. It meant that like when the Nazis all died, he was still there, and then they could basically go back and get the U.S. government to go get the Ark
to put it in the big
instead
warehouse.
of it just being like
that's fair.
Just an Ark sitting out on an island somewhere with a bunch of skeletal remains of Nazis that someone might discover 40 years later. Just the lid still off, just sitting there.
Oh my god. The Iconic Toast, thanks for joining the stream. It was super fun. Let's see. Robert asks, have you ever played Wild West Exodus? I think the fiction is interesting, but I've never played it. I did a demo game at Adepticon several years ago, but I never ended up picking it up. I mean, it seemed fine. But that was about as far as I got with it. Thomas, the old witch scared the heck out of Denegra, which lets you know just how powerful she really is. Yes, that's the fun stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. I remember there's apparently a story at one point where Menoth was, when he was still walking around on Cain, just comes across the old witch. And they just cross paths, go their own ways. And you're like, oh, you've been around for a while.
Poor Menoth, I remember him. Back when the giants were still around. Robert, I just received a huge box of BattleTech Kickstarter stuff I pledged 18 months ago and forgot about. Isn't that wonderful? Like, you're just like, oh, what's this big package? Ooh, presents. It's like from your past self, I don't know. I'm horrible with Kickstarters. If I back it, I kind of forget. We backed that one with Kevin MacLeod.
Yeah, there's a Kevin MacLeod documentary that took, I swear to God, like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, several years. I just remember being like, this is shipping soon. I was like, I've always been happy about it.
Usually when I back a Kickstarter, I just assume I threw my money away. It's like gambling for me. I'm just like, well, I did that. We'll see. And then I just forget about it. And then one day if it shows up, I'm pleasantly surprised.
And then Paul corrected us that it was Batman Returns, not Batman Forever. Batman Forever was different.
Val Kilmer and the Riddler and Two-Face.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And you had Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, I believe, in it.
That's the one after. That's Batman on Ice.
Oh gosh.
I don't even know what that one's called.
Oh, it's the Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and.
But yeah, the Riddler was
Jim Carrey.
Ace Ventura.
Jim
Carrey. And then Tommy Lee Jones was Two-Face, I think.
Oh. Thomas, the Strange Light Workshop Kickstarter begins tomorrow. Going for the deluxe package. Okay. Just make sure when you go to the Kickstarter for them, click on the link in my video description, because then they know that I sent you. if you can, I'd appreciate it, because they measure, the links. They give unique links out, and so if you use that link, then they know it came from me, and maybe I let you know about it unless you were already aware ahead of time. But if not, then that's cool. Appreciate it. Begging for clicks. All right, I think we could probably wrap it up here. We didn't even bring up our own game mechanic stuff.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We got to the end, and I'm sure people can probably guess what some of our thoughts are on it.
Yeah.
All right, so Batman and Robin is the one with Uma Thurman.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Batman and Robin.
So does that mean, is that the one with Alicia Silverstone? Is that the one where both Batman and Robin had nipples on their bat suits, but Batgirl didn't?
Schumacher?
Yeah, it was Joel Schumacher.
He was going to make a super dark Batman. You can blame the studios and their dumb decisions for why we got that atrocious
Yeah, the story he pitched them was actually this really dark, like Frank Miller style Batman. It was, the guy did like 8mm. It was a pretty good movie. But he was going to make a dark Batman, and they're like, no, we want stuff that sells toys for kids. And he's like, I actually like the old 60s TV series too. And he's like, fine, so I'll just make that thing.
Do that. Paul, man, rolling up on all the Batman knowledge. Did you rewatch these movies? Or do you just have a really good movie memory, like Disembodied Voice here does? All right. So we'll be back here in 2 weeks, which puts us into August. Late summer, August 7th.
Oh, yep.
And we'll be talking about how fast fashion is ruining wargaming. So more on that to come. We'll see how far we get with our opinions. But I super appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys joining me for the stream, and definitely feel free to add your thoughts on it. Obviously, we're going to have our little outro. So if there are other game mechanics you would like to see go, I know some folks mentioned that in there. I want to hear them too, because
also
it's worth it.
Make sure to add a thumbs up on the video.
Oh yeah, I should have probably mentioned that earlier. Thumbs up this video so YouTube doesn't think that I'm just wasting all of their bandwidth. Okay, let's outro here, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Cover me. All right, guys, this is it. Copy that. Sandwiches, Barry. What's wrong with this place? I'm in the West Corridor. I'm right outside the generator room. I'm out of bullets.